always showed us so much love, but he had quite a severe mental diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
But when he was good and on the up, he was amazing. And then I came to find out that shortly afterwards, he took his life,
Oh.
which really saddened me. But I just remember feeling like, what could I do to support individuals that are struggling so much that they had to take their lives? Because it just didn't sit well with me. Because I just feel like he was such a great guy. And obviously, I was just so young. I didn't really understand the struggles and the battles that he was going through. So from then I had that experience, and then I kind of just became. I'm naturally a nurturer. I'm naturally quite caring. So then over time, I just kept on finding myself in positions where I'll be caring for the mental health or just for people that are not as fortunate as I am. So, for another example, when I was in school, we'll go, when you're in school, after school, you want to be with your friends, you're chilling around, stuff like that. Yeah.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching us from. Thank you for joining us once again for a lovely conversation with a global sister. Today, I have the honor of having Ama with us here. She's an amazing woman that I cannot wait for you guys to meet and hear all about her story. Good afternoon, Ama. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you. I'm super excited that we're finally able to make this call. I know that we had to reschedule the first time, and you told me you're not so well, so I'm really grateful for you to taking the time out for us.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really excited for you having me today. I'm excited to get into a conversation, heartfelt, between women about our journey and just how we've prevailed and just persevered. So it's good vibes. I'm excited.
Yay! So without further ado, I'd like to start with a short introduction. Could you tell us a little bit about who Ama is? And when I say who you are, not necessarily only as a business person, but just who you are as a person.
Oh, I love that. Okay, well, let me try and shorten it the best way I know how. So who I am as a person, I'm a woman. I'm a Black African woman that was born and raised in the UK. And right now I'm on the journey into coming back to Ghana and relearning my culture from the natives. Um, so that's just me in terms of me as a person.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm very bubbly. I love to dance,
No.
right? Love to dance. I'm very outgoing, but moving forward in terms of what I do in my business. So my business is called Simply Ama, Your Life Coach. I'm a relationship coach, and I tend to help and encourage women to have a better nurturing relationship with themselves. Because us as women in today's society, we have been broken down so much, and unfortunately, our parents, our mothers, have also been broken down in their generation. So we've been taught a lot of broken traits.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know that we've been taught so many broken traits and we act in these traits. So it's just a consistent broken woman type cycle.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what my goal is to try and improve and heal our women and to kind of revert back to who we were in our ancient times, live in our power, cultivate our goddess, and just know that we are amazing. So that's essentially what I do.
I love
And that's
that. Thank you so much. And, I always say when people are watching this, they're probably saying, yeah, okay, I get why Rose is interviewing you. As soon as people introduce themselves, they're like, yeah, okay, we get it. We get it. We see the resemblance, we see the vibe, we see the
vibe.
female entrepreneurship. I really love everything that you said. And I'd love to go deeper into, take me back to Ama as a young woman, because I love that. Because who you are today is a reflection of, the things you went through, your upbringing, and all of that. You have come to become who you are today because of who you were before. So tell us, who was the little girl, Ama? How did you grow up, with in what environment, and what made you who you are today?
If I'm really being quite honest, even like these questions for me, I struggle with
Mm-hmm.
because I struggle with trust and being quite vulnerable. As a
Mm-hmm.
coach, I encourage vulnerability, but myself, I have struggled over the past.
Yeah.
So like as you're asking these questions, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to be vulnerable and just pace myself. But essentially who I am is and my inner child, who what I came from is I came from a very loving home, a very religious home. I grew up in a Pentecostal home, so I always had to go to church. But then my mum wanted me to go to a really good school, so then I got baptized and I had a Holy Communion. So I was also in Catholic schools, and being in Catholic schools, I was around a lot of white people. So essentially, I had quite of a bit of a hard time growing up because it was quite conflicting, in a sense of when you're at home, you've got these rules, and then when you go to school, already I'm dark skinned. When I was growing up in school, dark skin is not cute. Being African wasn't nice. It was, you're fresh from the boat, or go back, to your country. So then when you go and you're being raised in a foreign country and you're dark skinned, you just tend to get mistreated. They just tend to and it's in their mannerisms. It's not something that blatant out racism. They're just it's in their mannerisms. So as I was growing up, I was pretty much taught by a lot of my teachers that I'm not very smart, and I was always put in the lowest set. To the point some of my teachers said that I'll like grow up, I'll be like 16 by the time I'm 16, I'll probably have a baby, I won't even pass my GCSEs. And the thing is, because my parents were first generation migrants, they believed everything that my teachers said, because in Africa, what are they going to? Why are your teachers going to say anything? And that saying, a community raises a child. So my parents went with that mindset that no, they must be saying the truth. So I always kind of got in trouble a lot with school because I learned that I had to stand up for myself and no one was going to do it for me. So I was always fighting back in terms of my teachers, like, no, I'm not this, I'm not that. And then that really worked. That was really heavy on my self-esteem and just my overall, not just self-esteem, but just the love for myself, because I generally just didn't believe that I was smart. And it was so bad that they actually got a psychologist to do an assessment on me without me even knowing. I never knew. I think I knew like years later. And they was just like, because they said that they felt like I was maybe I could have been mentally unwell because of how I reacted to them, as well as my learning. They also said I've got a learning disability or difficulty, learning difficulty. And then so then they did all of that, and then the psychologist came back and said that no, she's a very strong, stern child that has a very strong personality, and I like to be a leader. I've got like this big of a page of like the assessment. Anyway, moving forward, I ended up passing all of my GCSEs. I've got distinctions. Distinctions are equivalent to A's. And then I'm moving forward from that. I went on to my degree and I got a 2-1, 1 mark away from the first. And then I went on to do my master's. And then I went on to do my diploma. And then now I'm here today.
Yeah.
So that's essentially like my experiences growing up and the struggles that I went through.
And exactly, I can empathize with a lot of the things you mentioned. Being born and raised outside, it's a struggle because you're always the odd one out. You're always, and as you said, I'm a fellow dark-skinned girl, so you always stand out. You're like, oh, there she comes again. And it's like you represent the whole culture, and there's this weight on your shoulders of having to work harder than everybody else, having to be the perfect student. And it is hard. And especially someone like me, when I'm the eldest at home from my sister's side. I have a younger sister, and we grew up together just with my sister and I. And so it was like, you have to be the example. You always have to, work extra hard because you're paving the way for your younger, sister. So I can totally relate having the negative comments in school where teachers didn't believe in you and think that, you are less than the other students. And kudos to you for proving them wrong, because you knew all along that what they're saying was wrong. And I'm so sorry that your parents at that time weren't able to, stand up for you and believe what you were saying. I guess I was kind of lucky that my mom turned a question to me and asked, what do you think about this? Is this what you want to do? and I had the chance to switch schools and really, thrive in a different way. But I can only imagine how my life would have turned out if, I don't think I would have had as much resilience as you did when you were younger. So yeah, congrats.
Thank
Um,
you so much.
it Take us through, because you said, you went on to study and you were an excellent student. What did you study? What was your educational background?
So I studied psychology, psychological counseling and therapies. Then I went into my master's to do psychological therapies, and I wanted to do my diploma in life coaching.
Yeah, yeah. So it completely makes sense because I think, would you say that the assessment, or because you said you found out years later that you had been assessed. So what do you think inspired you to go on that path of, choose those kind of studies for yourself?
Oh gosh. So my mom, she actually was a mental health support worker. And then when I was younger, so she lived, so not she lived, so she worked in a residential home when, the clients that when they're released from their some of the psychiatric wards, they're put into residential homes because they're that's the best they're gonna get, but they're semi-independent, so they
Yeah.
still need that kind of support. So my mum worked in that residential type of home, and I was quite young. I was about 6, 7. So quite often I'd always go to my mum's workplace, and then there was this one particular client. He's called Stanley, and I adored him. Like he just really took to me. I never was allowed to go inside, but I'll stay outside and then they'll be outside. And he really, really, really took to me and my brother and my sister, Stanley. He always showed us so much love. But he had quite a severe mental diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
But when he was good and on the up, he was amazing. And then I came to find out that shortly afterwards, he took his life,
Oh,
which really saddened me. But I just remember feeling like, what could I do to support individuals that are struggling so much that they had to take their lives? Because it just didn't sit well with me. Because I just feel like he was such a great guy. And obviously, I was just so young. I didn't really understand the struggles and the battles that he was going through. So from then I had that experience, and then I kind of just became. I'm naturally a nurturer. I'm naturally quite caring. So then over time, I just kept on finding myself in positions where I'll be caring for the mental health or just for people that are not as fortunate as I am. So, for another example, when I was in school, we'll go, when you're in school, after school, you want to be with your friends, you're chilling around, stuff like that. Yeah, so I was chilling with my friends, and there was these two twins that were Nigerian, and they were like pretty much that I don't think that they couldn't really communicate very well. They had mental health as well as learning disabilities.
mm.
But they will draw a lot, but they're just happy, very happy. And they'll be wearing these elaborative clothing, like the whole flag of the United Kingdom, stuff like that, with the hat and everything. Like just really happy twins, right? And then they'll just be like marching like whoop, whoop. And then I remember my friend just being so rude and be like, move, man, we don't want you here. And that just hurt me. And I was just like, you would imagine if that was your brother, you would hate it if your brother did that to you. And I think I was about like 13, 14.
Mm.
And it really irritated me. And I said, don't do that to them because they are also people.
Yeah.
And she was just like, whatever, whatever. And I said, no, it's not whatever. That's rude. Don't ever do that.
Yeah.
So, because I had these experiences, that's when I was just like, I knew that I had to be in mental health. I just didn't know exactly what position that would give me that type of support for me to be able to help.
Yeah. 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 Oh, so amazing. And it's beautiful that a lot of people struggle finding out what they want to do with their lives, their purpose in a way, and I always call it the secret sauce. When you find what you're good at, what you love, and what the world needs, and you found it really early on. You didn't specifically have a name for it, perhaps, or a profession tied to it, but you knew you wanted to help, you knew you wanted to take care of people, but specifically maybe people who weren't feeling so good about themselves, and you wanted to help them feel better. So it's amazing that you found out so early in your life because it allowed you to go in a direction that, was kind of a clear direction, I would say. So
Mm-hmm.
it takes us to, what you're doing currently, right? Because we know you study
Okay.
psychology. It makes a lot of sense that you're a coach. So tell us about the work that you do specifically, because you say you're a relationship coach. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so when I was in the UK, I was actually trained in CBT, cognitive behavioral
Yeah.
therapy. So essentially, what I do with my coaching is that I use informal coaching questions strategies to probe my clients into thinking about other perspective, other possibilities. So I like to say that it's essentially opening their third eye.
Yeah.
Because when there's always like two sides of the story, or people say there's this side of the story, that side of the story, and the truth. I like to say that that truth part is your third eye.
Mm.
Look at it like without your emotional state. And then, so once we probe these questions, with once I start probing these questions with my clients, they start to be like, oh, actually, I never thought of that. That never really came to me. But then what I then do is that I use my experience in cognitive behavioral therapy to alter the cognitive mind. So, CER, that's cognitive restructuring. Then I also would do worry management. Then I would look into which relieves them of anxiety, which then shows them their like structural patterns and
Yeah.
how their cognitive mind affects their behavioral patterns and
Mm-hmm.
how limiting their beliefs are your core beliefs. So that's really mainly the work that I do, is really working on the cognitive mind and using informal coaching strategies to be able to constantly probe that new abundant mindset manifestation. You are the queen of your world, because we don't feel like we are in charge of our world, especially because we've got government and stuff like that. You're essentially born into a system where everything is essentially laid out for you by law. In the UK, you have to be in school by
Yeah.
3. Do you see what I mean? If not, something could go down with your parents. So you're kind of put into a system where everything is pretty much done for you.
Yeah.
You go to school, you do this, you do that, you do that. Then after university, then now you start to think for yourself. And it's like we struggle, but the fact is, your life is in your hands. So what do you want? How would you like to present yourself in this world? Do you want to present yourself as a broken person, or do you want to be improved? Do you want to stay as a student in this life and constantly learn? Or do you want to now, it sounds harsh, but naturally become ignorant over time and stay quite childlike mentally?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What's like? So these are the processes that I go through with my clients.
I love that. And it resonates with me a lot. And I think the work that I do, I like to call the type of coaching that I do holistic lifestyle and business coaching, because I look at the lifestyle. For me, you can't have a business and yourself. It shouldn't be two separate things. It's the same thing. And not
Exactly.
as in you never rest, you're always working, but more as in you are what you do, but you are what you do in a way. So bringing those two together where you don't feel like you have to separate yourself. And in order to do that, I work a lot also on limiting beliefs, because I feel like a lot of people have this core negative beliefs that they don't have.
Exactly.
They think, oh no, I don't have any negative beliefs, but we all have them. We'll
Mm-hmm.
forever have them, but it's important to recognize what they are, where they came
Exactly.
from, and how to deal with
Exactly.
them when they show up in our lives.
Exactly. And it's more so like just people, a lot of individuals don't actually are not able to recognize their
Mm-hmm.
negative thoughts, because it's just like someone compliments you, oh my gosh, girl, I like your hair. You're just like, really? No, I don't really like it today. That's negative. But
Exactly.
to us, I used to think that's just me being real. I don't like how my hair looks today. But why can't I just say it in a better way that, oh, thanks, like, thanks, that's really great, but I would like to improve it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm essentially saying the same thing, but I'm reinforcing more positivity rather than negativity. And then I just feel like we are not taught the power of our words. We're
Mm-hmm.
not really taught the full power of our words, and how our words affect our thoughts, and how our thoughts shape our lives. Like literally, who you're seeing today came from a thought.
Yeah,
Me being in Ghana now came from a thought. I didn't just boom and I was in Ghana. I literally thought about that consistently over time, and I'm a believer in the supreme creator and in God. So I believe that God really helped me and guided me in this way. So I'm able to manifest my goals.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like I said, because we're so dependent on others, we naturally seek validation from others culturally as well. Oh, your name, don't do this because you're going to be shamed. It's always that shame, that guilt kind of thing that that's really in our core, because it's just
Mhm.
embedded in our culture, essentially in our DNA. So it's quite hard for us to start to think like, no, this is me. Let me just think about myself. What is it that I want? Or I don't need to seek validation from others. If that's how you perceive me, then I'm okay with that. But
Yeah.
long as you know in your heart that you're being authentic, genuine, and you're not going out your way to hurt people's feelings,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I'd love to talk a little bit more about, because you work specifically with women, and from what I understand, you work a lot on relationship with self, um,
Mhm.
self-love, self-discovery, and you yourself went on a self-discovery journey or are currently on one, as it's a never-ending one. Could you tell us a little bit about your approach to that?
For my self-discovery journey.
Yeah, and how you work with clients to help them discover themselves and self-love and all that.
So my approach for my self-discovery journey was, well, first, just a bit of a background was when I was really going through it in life, like I've gone through quite a lot. My life has not been easy at all. And there was a point in my life where I didn't have nobody, no one. I didn't consider anyone around me to essentially I grew up believing that I was unlovable because that's what I was told a lot of the time by my close family, that I'm just not lovable. So because I grew up, so that kind of basically prompted, because it got to the point where no, it just became unbearable to live through just constantly feeling so low and
Mm.
just constantly just feeling like you're not a lovable person, because it really communicates in how you communicate with people. Because of that, I didn't want people around me much. I was very distant, and how people perceived me was to be fairly cold when I was younger. I remember when my friends used to say, "Do you ever cry?" And I never cried when I was younger. That was so forbidden to me. Now I cry all the time. I always say cry. Own your emotions. But yeah, so that's essentially what probed it. It just became so unbearable that I was just like, no, I need to really go into what is actually happening. So then what I did was I just became I moved out of my house, I got a new job, and I became very isolated, which was extremely great because then it cleared my mind. I didn't hear nobody else but myself. I then started to read. I hated reading. I started to read, and then I moved into meditating. Just silencing my mind and really just trying to understand what was going on. And after meditation, I would literally be in tears. Like I would be in tears because I felt how how much I battled. It even brings tears to my eyes now, but I felt how much I battled in this life, and I just felt so shattered. And it
Mm.
was just like, and I felt sorry for myself. Like, how can I do this to myself?
Yeah.
I felt like my inner being was just so broken. Like, when you're just like, I'm so fed up of
Yeah.
fighting. Um, and I just couldn't. And I just felt so sad that I had put my body, my emotional being in such battle. And then I realized that there was really never a point that I felt emotionally safe, really, with anybody else. So as I'll journal these things. I'll journal, 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 and then I started to do gratitude. And then as I started to do gratitude, I started to do gratitude with simple things like I'm grateful for breath, I'm grateful for eyesight. I became grateful for the most smallest things, for just
Mhm.
like, air, for my environment. I was grateful for peace of mind. And then as I became more grateful, I started to become a lot more loving to myself. I started to love all of my imperfections. I started to look at my shadows as, greatness. I was just thinking in my mind, everything that's happened to me, I used to look at it with such bitterness. such guilt, such shame. And then now when I look at it, I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful for my family, for the things that I've gone through my family. I'm grateful for my friends, the things that I've gone through with my friends, or the people that I once considered my friends. I am so grateful for my teachers that put me down all the time, because they was doing it for me to grow. And I realized, and I removed that emotional attachment, that all of these painful experiences are not happening to break you. They're happening for you to grow and step up, because the reality is there's a boundary that needs to be created. It's you can't take, and I learned that you can't take the good without the bad.
Yeah.
You've just got to choose which ones that you want to, which poison you want to have. It's kind of like everyone's not all good. You've got to take everybody's poison. Do you get what I mean? Everybody has their bad sides. So that's essentially why I started. So I just started journaling, started meditating, started to really look into chakras, your auras, energy, and then I just started naturally healing my inner child, starting to understand that starting to digest more things that I went through. So then that's essentially what I do with my clients. I go back into their inner child. And what helps me is that I did psychodynamic when I was doing my master's. And psychodynamic literally goes into your inner child. It helps you connect your past into your present.
Yeah.
So then because I've got such extensive experience with learning psychology, I am able to help my clients connect their themes from the past, even down to their parents. Well, tell me a bit about your parents' childhood. What happened with your parents? And then now let's see how your parents are now, because we look at our parents like they are God sent, but our parents are human beings. They are people, who have gone through stuff. So if we now look at our parents as a woman and as a man, our expectations will become a bit more realistic. And then we'll naturally become detached from the things that our parents or our sisters, our brothers, our friends have now done to us. And then we'll start to then look in between into those lessons that has taught us, because every situation has taught you something better. Has taught you something. And just learn from that. Constantly learn. So it's a long-winded answer, but that's essentially what I do, and that's what I learned on my self-love journey.
I love that, because I think personally, I also believe that the more you heal, the more you're able to show more empathy towards yourself, but towards your parents and people around you. Because, we always think, and especially in psychology, it's like everything goes back to your upbringing, right? It's always the parents' fault. And now that I'm a parent, I'm like, it's like nerve-wracking for me, because every time I'm doing something, I'm like, oh my God, this is going to lead to a trauma or not. Like, I have to think.
Yes. I feel like that with my niece all the time.
It's difficult. And so every time, and sometimes I do things and I'm like, oh, this wasn't the best reaction. And then I give myself the grace that, what, you're not perfect. You're not a human perfect. And your child hopefully will grow up to also learn, if not only because you're telling them before they grow up, but once they grow up, hopefully they'll learn that you're also just a human being who's flawed. And so I've learned through all the things that you mentioned, journaling, meditation. And I know people always like rolling their eyes. Oh, here she goes again, talking about journaling. But I'm like, guys, there's some truth in that, okay? If people are nagging and talking about journaling and gratitude and meditation and body movements and all these things, affirmations and manifestation, it's because there's some truth in it. So if you're annoyed, listen to this and do it, please.
Literally. But the thing is, I just feel like, especially when it comes to like coaching, when they're like, you get clients where it's just like, save me. What do I do? And it's just like, I can't save you. That's something that I can never do, but I can help you or encourage a better journey for you. And then when you say like, oh, journal, it's quite hard to get into journaling, because journaling can seem very boring.
Yeah.
And then some people have so much high expectations of journaling that they feel like I have to write like 2 pages. Sometimes I'll write 2 sentences.
Exactly.
Or sometimes I'll be like, I don't know what to write today. Yeah. But for the mere fact that I wrote something, I'm now training my subconscious this habit. I'm encouraging a habit to journal every day. Yeah. And then the more you do that, the more it's going to come to your mind. Before I couldn't meditate for a minute because I found meditation boring. I felt like, is this it? You know, like what? And I couldn't silence my mind really, because I was thinking about this, I was thinking about that, and I was just like, this is not beneficial at all.
Yeah.
But I just stayed consistent to and very committed to the journey, and I feel like that's what people are missing. We really
Mm.
want a quick fix these
Yeah.
days. I feel like it's partly to do social media, all of these indirects of BBL, you know, these celebrities, because
Yeah.
back in the day, celebrities wasn't so accessible. You saw them in magazines,
Yeah.
well, on TV. You didn't have so much access to them. Now you can actually legit email or message a full-blown celebrity,
Yeah.
you know. And so it's just kind of like when you see them do all of these things, like, oh, this is what I did and this is the body that I got. You're subconsciously teaching your audience that do this quick fix and this is what you're gonna get. It's not
Exactly.
realistic. It doesn't make
Mm-hmm.
sense. So it encourages that unrealistic and high expectation mindset that just naturally falls into so many other aspects of our lives. So that's why I say, look at your themes. What are your themes? It could start from as small as how you buy clothes, how you sell, or how you even start your day. It could be those small things that show those small behavioral characteristics that then reveal your thinking patterns.
Yeah.
And then it opens a whole bubble of, oh man, this is what I've been doing that's encouraging these things in my life.
Yeah. 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 I also like to encourage people to think about what their triggers are. Like, what are some people are like, they grew up in a household where maybe their mother told them all Black men are bad or all men are bad. And so they have this thing when even watching movies, they're always assuming the worst for relationships or
Exactly.
forever. So that's a trigger. That's
Exactly.
a thing. That's a thinking pattern. Like, okay, clearly I have pre, I have already decided that this is the outcome for this type of group of people, for this type of situation or whatever. So it's really, as you said, it's really looking at how you react to things and what your themes are, your patterns, as I may call it. I would love to talk a little bit about, earlier in the conversation, you talked about going to Ghana and growing up as a Black woman, a dark skinned girl in the UK, how difficult that was. And also being on this self discovery journey of discovering your heritage in Ghana. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I got very lucky with that because my dad, he's a traditionalist. Like my
Mm-hmm.
dad's actually a chief. So my dad's very strong in his culture that no, this is what it is. So when I was younger, my dad literally like hammered in my head, you're Ghanaian, you're Ghanaian, you're Ghanaian, you're African woman. When you go outside, that's a Buchi. When you come here, is Africa, you know? So because of that, I always, and my dad, my mom, my parents always made a very strong effort in making sure we understood Tree, we can speak
Yeah.
Tree.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I always took to the African culture. Like I was that girl that was speaking in Tree when I was younger. I'd be like, "Da, my passion." Me pay way when I was like 5, 6, 7, moving forward. I always loved the fact that I could speak another language. So that really, so I kind of just took to it. And then as I grew up, you know, the more as you grow up, the more you become more obronified, really, because
I
I
love
lived
that
in
word.
one of my made up words. But yeah, so you just become more whitewashed essentially because you are born and raised in the UK. So your mannerisms become more westernized. The way you communicate to your parents becomes more westernized. My dad, although he's a traditionalist, my dad is quite westernized at
Mm-hmm.
the same time. So then the more I grew up, the more I actually started to value my mother tongue because then as you can hear, I've got a very strong British accent. And if I when I go to London, people be like, where did you grow up? Because your accent is very strong. And that's because of the schools that I went to. I went to schools in like Wimbledon. So so yeah, so it was so you have those so the people around me had these accents. So essentially so basically that accent, my British accent makes it harder for me to pronounce certain words. I can't pronounce wife in tree for the life of me. And I've tried my hardest. I can't. So I just started to feel like I'm losing touch with my culture. I'm really losing touch with it. So then I started to cut, and I didn't come to Ghana for about 9 to 10 years. And then I came back. And when I came back, I realized how Obroni I am. Like, maybe Obroni. Like, when it comes to it, I'm really, you can tell I've got very westernized mannerisms. You know, like in London, no one walks by and says hi. If you say hi to the next person, they're looking at you like you're mad. Why are you saying hi? Like, what's going on? Whereas here, it's morning, evening, hello. For me to go to the market, I had to get my sister, because I've got two sisters here that are older than me that live here, that I had to get them to help me. I couldn't just go to the market, or I would have to go to the mall. Stuff like that pains me. And then I started to realize that I'm going to be the second generation of migrants when it comes to migrating from another country into the UK. My children, I'm gonna have to like know my language for absolutely fluently, and be very like consistent in making sure my children understand Tree and can speak it seamlessly. That it, I just felt like no, like it's just too hard. Not only that, as well with the UK culture, I don't agree with a lot of the things, like with the respect, with how with the things that they expose children to so early on in the school curriculums, such as like when it comes to sexual health. I think it's just a bit too much, me personally. So that's really the basis of why I came back, because I was just like, I want my children to know, and I want my children to be Ghanaian. I want them to understand, live and breathe in their culture. But also, a lot of my family are here. I want them to know their great uncles, their great great grandpas, things like that, because you can learn so much. My mum, she grew up in a is it polygamous, where you've got one, it's poly, right? She grew up in that type of setting. So it was, and my great grandfather had that as well. He had 3 wives, and he had a big compound. And then so my mum knows all of my mum, all of my grandma's half sisters.
Yeah.
Because she grew up with them.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have that if they didn't have that community and that family value. So that's something that I just wanted to maintain. And I come from a very rich culture. I'm not trying to, diet down.
Yeah.
As my offspring keeps growing. So that's essentially what it is in a nutshell.
Love that. I love that. And again, similarities. My mom is a chief, so my mom is a traditionalist.
Oh, great.
She's a queen mother, to be correct.
Yeah.
She's a queen mother. And so, yes, being born here, I speak fluent Tree. People always wanted to, like, oh my God, they congratulate me even now as an adult. Like, I'm married with kids and they still congratulate me for speaking Tree. And I'm like, okay, sure. I speak French too, but whatever. I speak German.
I love that.
Fine, I speak Tree.
All right, girl, tell it.
But yeah, so I can completely relate to that. My mom sharing the love of our culture and always saying, you're Ghanaian first and foremost. Wherever you go, this is who you are. And for me, I think moving to Ghana in 2012, 2013, when I moved there, it was in search of my culture. Even though I felt like I spoke Tree and I understood the culture and the language and everything, I still felt like there's something missing. And so it's when I moved to Ghana that I realized, okay, I'm not your typical Ghanaian, and it's okay. It's okay. And I learned to become the version of a Ghanaian woman that I wanted to create. So, I had to rediscover myself as an adult woman in Ghana, what that meant to be Ghanaian for me.
Exactly.
So yeah, I could totally relate to that. And I'm so happy for you for, being on that journey for yourself. And yeah, when you have kids and, as you said, passing on that information, you want it to be 100%. You want it to be full as much as you can and not dilute it in a way.
Exactly. And the thing is, one thing that I've realized is that native Africans that was born and raised in Africa, they're so proud. They'll be like, me, my country, I'm not like you guys, I'm African. Like, they're very proud. Whereas the Africans that are abroad, we're not as proud. We don't, and that's the fact. That's the thing, is because if you go back to our ancestry times, we are all kings and queens. Do you get what I mean? Like, our culture is so strong and so rich that we still have that embedded in us. And I want that crown to be carried on, like, throughout. just be proud, not to be ashamed or to be like, yeah, I'm Ghanaian, so, but no, I'm Ghanaian, you should be grateful, because a lot of the westernized culture still are searching for their culture,
Yeah.
and they don't have culture. When I'm talking about the westernized side, I'm more talking about the British, because that's why I was raised. The British do not have culture. Well, they do have culture, but the culture is very minimal. They don't have the values that really create that family vibe. So that's why when they do come to Africa, they love it so much, because it's just like, it's so refreshing to them. Like, we're so loving, we're so caring, we do this, we do that. Not that they're not loving or caring, but there's elements that are missed
Yeah, yeah.
because of the lack of culture.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit about, that's part of the self-discovery journey for you. Tell us a little bit about the work that you do with the women. How can women work with you? What kind of services do you offer? Is it one-to-one programs? Yeah.
Okay, so essentially how my clients can work with me is that I do one-to-one programs, I do group coaching. I've actually have been doing a group coaching called Discovering Your Inner Goddess. Um, every Fridays, where we just get a whole bunch of women come, and it's done virtually because I have international clients. However, I am thinking of making it more one face-to-face, one-to-one within Ghana. So I also do workshops, I do webinars online where I'm teaching women tools, psychological tools on how to activate, or more just to trigger their self-love journey. What are the right what are the questions that they need to ask themselves in silence, or they need to journal about, that just kind of probes that self-love, and try to get them to know that the reality is love is the answer for everything. Because if you don't have love, even goes down to, time. If you don't love yourself enough, you won't even value your own time. So do you get what I mean? You'll throw away your time, but your time is valuable. Just stuff like that. Understand that if you do not fill your love battery from love within, you will struggle.
Yeah.
So these are the things that I essentially try and really get into. But then also, because with love, it heightens emotional intelligence. We become emotionally aware of how we are, who's around us, our energetic beings. And then it also goes into it promotes productivity. Then it goes into wellness in terms of what we put in our bodies, what's coming out, stuff like that. So it's kind of more like a holistic package where we start to really understand who we are, what we are, and what goes in, because we are the temple.
Yeah.
If I'm a temple, I'm giving you like let's say I'm giving you a Rolls Royce. You're not going to now put mud in the Rolls Royce.
No.
Why are you putting mud in yourself? You're higher than a Rolls Royce. But what I'm also doing now is that I'm branching off into corporate trainings where I'm using CBT, cognitive behavioral tools and techniques, to encourage high work performance. Because a lot of these days, people, especially after the pandemic, we struggle with anxiety, we struggle with a lot of fear, we struggle with depression, how to get back into that cycle. A lot of people are struggling with staying productive in their 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
So that's essentially what I'm now going into, is doing corporate well-being workshops that's linking mental health or mindfulness to productivity.
Lovely.
How can we become more mindful about our thinking patterns? Like I said, emotional intelligence. If you're a leader, how can you become more mindful about how to manage your team members in the best way you know how, to get the best out of them? That essentially gets promotes the ultimate goal of the company.
I
hope that answers your question, because I went off on a rant.
It does absolutely answer it. And I love that, because I don't know if you know, but I have a yearly retreat called the Self-Love Retreat, which I would love to have you on one of these days. This year is the only year that we paused it, but we've had it every year since 2019 at the Royal Senchi in Ghana, a week of self-love and self-discovery, where we really delve deep into these topics as well, to really put yourself first. And I always say, fill your own cup first. Whatever overflows is for others. What's in the cup is for you. So if your cup is half full, honey, and you're giving out of that, you're going to feel drained, and you're going to feel half empty, because you are.
And you're allowing your cup to be poisoned. Do you see what I'm trying to say? Because when your cup is half empty, you tend to attract a lot of negative and toxic traits. you know, and then what you're doing is just digesting toxicness into your cup. So your cup now becomes quite dirty,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, literally, right? If you see it like that,
exactly.
it's kind of like, oh wow, yeah, that's essentially what you'll do. You're just digesting a lot of toxic traits that you don't need. You don't need to inhale, you don't need to digest. It's
Yeah,
unnecessary. But I really
exactly.
love that retreat that you do. I literally did a self-love circle with Araba, you know, Araba,
Mhm.
the self-care
Yeah.
Sundays festival. I
Hmm.
did a self-love circle there, and we did it with men and women, and we did
Nice.
actually have men and women there, and it really got me to understand that men really also need a lot of self-love, you
Yeah.
know, a whole lot of self-love, because men are taught not to look at not to are taught to sacrifice constantly. You've
Hmm.
got to sacrifice, you've got to do this, you can't show emotion because you're weak, you can't do this because you're that, you can't do that. And even if you go to your friends are going to make fun of you. If you go to your dad, he's not going to be able to help you unless he's done work on himself
Yeah.
for him to understand the, you know, the demand that it comes with being a man. That's what I just was like, if it's sometime in the future, I'll definitely love to also help my African and also my westernized or Brony men, just to get them to understand that we all love you and everything is great, you know.
Yes, it's so needed. It's so needed. I always get requests whether the retreats are for men as well. And I was like, you know what? I know you guys need it, but I'd rather work with a man, like a partner, to help you guys because I just feel I understand my sisters better, and maybe
Of
we can do like
course,
a cross
yeah.
space. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But there's
Of
definitely
course.
a need. There's definitely a need. Thank you so much. I'd love for you to share with us, what we can expect from Simply Ama in the next coming 6 months to a year. What are some of the things that we can get excited for? Maybe there's a launch coming up or something new.
So what can you expect from Simply Amber in the next year is I'm actually about to launch my new coaching packages where I'm able to where you have a lot more access, more intense coaching with self-love. We've got the liberated women, we've got the empowered woman and the phenomenal woman. And all of
Ooh.
those packages, the phenomenal woman is a year long where you have a coach for a year, and then we just do intense self-work on your self-love journey. Moving forward, I'm also going to be launching my corporate well-being workshops online, which is going to be done virtually. If you want, the link will be on Eventbrite or my Instagram at Simply Ama, your life coach. You can also email me at welcome@simplyamayourlifecoach.com, and then I'll be able to give you keep you updated with all of the upcoming things that I'll be doing with other collaborations that's going to be coming up in the new year.
Yay, exciting. So many nice, juicy things coming up. I can't wait. And hopefully, when I come down next year, I can meet you face to face and, do some work there, maybe interview you once again. And who knows, have you as a co host for one of our self love retreat. That would be really amazing.
Yeah, girl, just hit me up. I'm always down.
Great. Thank you so much for giving us this wonderful conversation, sharing about your story and your journey um, in Ghana as well. We loved hearing all about it. And thank you for your tips. And I hope to see you soon. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, bye.